Hi, this is Leslie Nips. I'm an NLP and family constellations practitioner located in Oakland, California. This is an audio of a workshop I led on November 14th, 2015 at the North American Systemic Constellations Conference in San Diego. The title of the workshop was When to Heal is to Betray Ourselves, Entanglements with Self in and Across Time. It is especially about fork in the road moments, when life suddenly is not ever going to be how we thought it was going to be, and how to move forward afterward. It's also about any way in which we imagine we might have had a better life than the one we now have, and how to be at peace about that. It is directed to an audience that is basically familiar with the systemic constellation work of Bert Hellinger and assumes some prior knowledge, but most audiences will be able to understand and appreciate this presentation. This audio has been edited to remove the personal exercises that took up the middle 45 minutes of the workshop, but it includes the entire introduction, the description of the exercise, and some sharing afterward. The pictures during the audio are from the conference and its venue, the Bahia Resort Hotel in San Diego. If at the end of this audio you are interested in finding out more about me and my work, there will be a list of ways at the end to get in touch with me. Please enjoy. Hi, I'm Leslie Nips. I'm up in Oakland, California. Have a private practice up there bringing together NLP and family constellations work, working one-on-one and in groups with people. I have Richard is a regular attendee sitting right next to Deborah of my regular constellation evenings in Berkeley. I've been doing that about 6 years now. And I also, for those of you who have visited my vending table, know that I have developed a bit of a subspecialty working with folks like yourselves who are trying to grow your businesses, and in any way that business is feeling snaggy or difficult in a heart-based context. I figured out a few things about how to stay heart-based and really thrive in your business. So you'll find that information over in the pavilion. We're not doing that today. This topic came to me a few months ago. I had a couple of clients, and I just want to tell you some client stories to start out with. The first one was a client I had. Any of you facilitators have your first early miracle cure with a client? You think this is what it's going to be like, and then it's not going to be like that. But I did a very early constellation. She was maybe my third client, truly. And she had not been able to get pregnant, and we worked together, and 2 weeks later, she was pregnant. I'm like, oh, yeah. So it's a good testimonial story, that's for sure. And then I didn't hear from her for years and years and years. I actually, on my birthday, I was at a local restaurant, and she came over, and she was having dinner with her 3-year-old daughter. Yeah, that was a really nice birthday present. And then I didn't hear from her. She's not attending constellations, not a regular client. She just went on. Out of the blue, she called me, and she said, I want to get pregnant again, and I'm not having success. Okay. Worked the first time. Hey. So she came back and we did a constellation, and she had had a miscarriage of a much-wanted child. And all of us can feel how that could be part of what was up. And it seemed like a fairly straightforward constellation. We did kind of the normal grieving movements, and including the lost child and all of that stuff, right? Everyone in this room would know how to do this. And it wasn't working. The representative for the potential child, the child she wanted, kept on going, I'm perfectly happy, I know I'm not wanted here. It's okay. And the representative for the mother kept on saying, and then I finally it took me a while to hear it, she said, I don't want that one, I want the miscarried one. And then she had actually said to me once, I actually don't want a new child, I want the lost child reincarnated. And I'm like, well, I probably can't arrange for that. I don't think that's how it works. But you can feel the longing. She fell in love with this child in her womb. She was a mother to this child. And so I'm sitting there, I was doing all the grieving stuff, and it wasn't working. Nothing had shifted at all. And I finally brought in, I just said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, come in. You're this wanted child she's never going to have at infancy. You're the one at toddlerhood. You're the one at teenagehood. You're the one at young adult. You're a mature woman. And the representative for the mother burst into tears, and she said, "That's what I want." She already had that whole life in her heart. She didn't want to grieve a miscarried child. And it hit me so strongly. The next one, I thought that was a bit of a fluke, but the second one kind of really made me realize there's something important here I invite us all to start to pay attention to if you haven't before. Another client, working one-on-one, not in a group context, had a teenage mistake come back to her in young motherhood. And right after her child was born, she went to jail for 4 years. And she missed her first child's first 4 years of life. And she came out, actually a very resilient kid, doing really, really well. She was doing really, the family was doing well. But she could not get over it. That's the way you could feel the energy of, I am not going to let myself be okay about this because the loss is too big. And so what I brought in our little two-person interaction was a representative for her who never went to jail, who had spent those 4 years with her beloved child. That she could grieve. That she could grieve. Then I began to wonder, big kind of adult cross forks in the road moments is what we're describing here, right? We're thinking we're going to go this way and then we lose the legs. We're going this way and we're kicked out of a career or whatever it is, that kind of thing. But then I began to think a little bit more about it and I thought, what if it's all of us? What if I'm entangled, and I'm using that language a little inaccurately, but I think it works okay because it's a movement of love. What if we're entangled with the version of me who didn't have alcoholic parents growing up? Or the version of me who didn't get abandoned by my father when I was 6 months? Or the me, even if we go transgenerationally, the me who didn't have grandparents who suffered in the Holocaust? Wouldn't she be happier? Doesn't he have a better life than mine? Wouldn't that have been the good life? And it makes it a little hard to settle full-heartedly into our own. And so since then, I've done dozens of these. I've now done this with a lot of people. I've done it with a lot of my business clients. What I'm finding is people who are stuck building their businesses can be entangled with a version of themselves that they would have preferred to have been, and they can't let themselves have fun in their business because there's this other thing they really would have preferred, right? Their real life, the correct life, however they think about it. So it's now become a little universal. It's now become something I especially if I'm dealing with a client who over time has kind of not had a lot of movement in a super stuck pattern, a trauma pattern of some sort or another, that you have a sense of should have worked by now, right? So, what I'm noticing about them is that, something I want to say about the framework here. I'm a former physics major. I love my science. I love field theory. It's part of what I love about Hellinger work is it really brings out the science geek in me a little bit. So I'm going to invite you to choose one of two ways to kind of imagine what we're working with here. There can be others, but these are the two ways I think of it. One is in the teens and 20s, those amazing physicists who changed our vision of the world. One of them came up with the many worlds theory, that every single possibility exists in some universe somewhere. So in that sense, we actually are entangled with an alternative self and an alternative lifetime, which is the way that I often talk about it with people, because it feels that real. The other way that I think is absolutely as legitimate is Think of your inner team constellations. When you do that sort of, you set up your inner cheerleader and your inner victim and your inner perpetrator and your inner good girl and, that stuff. This is a mental construct. This alternative self, this other life that has my heart is absolutely as real in the field as people are, right? So either way you want to think about it, I think they're both really useful ways of thinking about it. In terms of resolutions, I just want to say a few words about this, because most of this is going to be you doing this with each other. And I'm going to help you out a little bit. I want to tell you that this is because it's not ancestral, the orders of love apply in all the ways that we know them to apply, but it's not the same as family belonging. It's like some of the ways in which the orders of love are adapted for organizations, in the ways in which organizations are a little different from families. So it's not quite as neat and tidy, but there are some things I've noticed. First of all, there is one basic movement. And I'm actually going to ask for a volunteer quickly to just show it. Could you come up? Just stand over here. And I don't know how long of a rope I have here, so So the basic movement, if I had a representative for the alternative life that I might have imagined was better or more proper to me or something, at the end, we've done all this work, is, this is my life and that's your life. It's kind of the basic, if we were to find a universal of it, and that one might say, yeah, that's my life and that's your life. Right? There's often some stuff we need to do to get there, but that's kind of the landing place. Thank you. Having said that, I've noticed when I first started out, I thought it was basically just grieving the other life that you didn't get to have. That is a very common movement. As for the mother who lost the child, for the woman who went to jail. Just grieving the loss. We've seen that in constellations. When you can finally grieve a loss, you stop being entangled with it. There's a release, right? So you bow or whatever goes into the grieving. Sometimes what shows up, we put in a representative for the alternative life, and they say, you know what? This one isn't better. We probably won't find out how or why because we're dealing in great vaguenesses. But we once had, I did it with a client whose father abandoned him basically at birth. And so the alternative was the one who had his father. And the alternative said, my life wasn't better. And obviously we can get niggling about what's better and worse, right? We can't actually, but it was actually like, oh, yeah, having that guy around might have been difficult, It allowed something in. Okay, so that's one version. Another version is resolving a sense of opposition or enmity. Sometimes the two, you come in and your alternative life shows up, and there's this kind of like, fuck you, like, kind of thing. So working with the resolution, it connects us to Ed Tix. Yeah? The movement is to go to Vietnam, right? It's to find, that's a bond. There's a bond in there. So it can take a little time getting there, but that's usually what you're looking for is a recognition that there's actually a bond there. This is a really nice one. I've seen it several times. Discovering that the alternative self indeed did have the sunnier life, as suspected, and is happy to bless and support you in yours. And they will say, yes, yours was harder. I see that. It's really nice. One other was a bit of a Hail Mary, but when I eventually found it, it actually really, really worked. It wasn't moving. The client was actually getting more uncomfortable, not less. So all I did was I had to use cards because it was one-on-one, but I brought in about 20 other alternative lives. And what he began to feel was he was one of many. Some who had it worse, some who had it easier, some who had just had it different. And he felt, it was a he felt a brotherhood and all these different versions of himself. And something could relax that this of the multitude, many worlds theory, there's infinity of you. That this one's yours. It's yours and it gives you dignity. It's your life, your history. And then you can go, wow, that one, that's yours. That's beautiful. That one was a hard one. I honor you. And yours was easy. Yours was a lot easier. Okay. And just to sort of, that was the final movement we had to do. So if any of you today are getting really sticky, I have cards. You can just bring in a bunch more. So, I was going to do a quick demo, but I'm not going to do that. We're all in the field here, and that will take up time from you guys. And I want you doing this work with each other. So, I want to kind of tee up what we're going to do. We're actually, these are not pairs. My outline is reminding me it's threes. So glad for my outline. And before yours, you're just going to have to decide what you're going to choose. You kind of have two choices. You could choose something specific. The me who didn't go to jail, the me who didn't have alcoholic parents, whatever that is. You can choose something kind of specific that, like, yeah, that's the one. That's the one I grind my teeth about, and consciously or unconsciously my whole life. I've been in resistance to that one. Or if you really want to, I do recommend if you can find one of those, that's the way you go. But you can go with something more vague, which would be the me I'm entangled with that's making life hard now in way X. You know? So if you're struggling in some way in your life, you're resisting something, you're not letting go into something in your life you would like to experience, the me I'm entangled with, which is making that experience of life more difficult. So that's the other way to go. So I'm giving you a little time to think about that. Some group norms, my friends, right? Confidentiality. Please don't share these stories outside of this room. You're going to go deep. You might share some pretty naked things. Please take care of yourselves and ask for what you need. Okay. This is something we invite everybody into in these conferences. Please recognize the limits of our context. Work may be partial or incomplete. And just find that place in you that's okay with that. It doesn't mean like, I will never have the healing I need, right? It may be a part A of a two-parter. And make a commitment to yourself to find a way to finish the work either here or later on. Please take responsibility for yourself and respect other needs for safety. I'm noticing at a large conference there are different standards for that. Some people find screaming and kicking things and throwing things across the room perfectly acceptable. I can invite us to just check in. Like if you hang out in groups that do that and that's super safe, we're in a slightly more diverse context and don't throw things. And we do have a group downstairs, so watch the stamping. I made a joke about that, but it was a joke. Please just tend to the fact that other people are also doing work. And try and be respectful of the fact that a lot of people are doing a little fight-flight for, understandable reasons, and sudden movements and sharp sounds can be a little alarming to the kind of space is a little raw. So as you represent, just dial into how can I express what's going on here usefully for the client I'm with, and the whole room. Also, you can pass, okay? You don't have to do this. But we do have time for everybody to do a round of 15 minutes. And what you're going to do is, in a moment, not yet, in a moment you're going to get into groups of 3. I'm going to let the groups figure that out for yourself. And there's going to be 3 roles each, so you're going to do 3 constellations, one for each of the people in the group. And there's going to be basically 3 roles. And if there's one of these roles you don't want to do, just again, let the group know ahead of time, right? Ask for your needs. If you really don't want to do a constellation, let your group know, because then the other 2 have more time. But still participate. So the roles are the person who's having the constellation done, so they are being themselves. The person who is the alternative life, so this is basically a dyad. And then the other person is going to be an extremely gentle facilitator. Okay? And I'm going to be moving around and helping a lot. If anyone in the room feels really new to facilitating and that this is not doesn't feel like the place to start trying to be responsible for someone else's healing, too much pressure, just ask someone else to facilitate twice who's looking like they're up for it, in your group. And again, I'm going to be available to help when one of the things many of us in the room have developed, and I've developed, is to be able to come into a group, feel it's stuck, and just go, could you move 3 inches to the right? And everyone goes, oh, okay, no big deal. We can take care of ourselves now. So just ask for my help. I'll be wandering around. Otherwise, that's what we're going to do, and then we're just going to come back and do some final sharing together. Okay? Any questions? This is the time to ask questions about this format, what we're exploring. Yeah?
Open or blind, or a version of whatever?
You can feel free to share, like, you are the version of me who did not have alcoholic parents, which would be open. Or you can say, you're the alternative self, in which case it's blind. Okay? It's a good question, thank you. You can choose how much you want to reveal about that. It will work just as well either way. Yeah?
The person whose turn is it, are they sitting out and watching?
No, they're being themselves. So they are going to, you all know this, but I'll say it. You've all represented yourself at some time or another, I hope. Representing is similar to, but not exactly like being yourself. Right? So, and the key to this is really, really useful. Thank you for asking that question. A little bit of guidance here. The temptations are great to start thinking about how this interaction is supposed to unfold. Yes? Try not to do that. Represent. Representing is feeling what you're feeling, noticing what you're experiencing, being embodied, having a representative's experience. I will notice if a group is going off course and starting to try and explain what's going on. I'm going to encourage you not to do that. Not because it isn't useful, it is. It's great. All that stuff is wonderful. It just tends to dampen the field. And the field's capacity to give you information that will surprise and heal. From my point of view, one of the wonderful things about constellation work, we're all children of Freud. We all have our interpretations of how we got to be the way we are and how our parents got the way they are and all that stuff. And they're good theories and stories. But what constellation work can pop up the story we didn't occur to us and changes the whole experience of the problem, right? So I invite you to kind of let that stuff go, step into the field, step into the representation, seek the information the field is giving you, and let yourself be surprised. Let yourself be uncomfortable and not know for a while. As Dan knows, that's a key moment in facilitating, is let yourself say, I do not know what I'm doing. This is the power moment in constellations when you let yourself do that. There was one other thought that came through in terms of guidance, but it's gone, so it must not have needed to be said. Any other questions? Okay, so find your groups of 3, and you can bring chairs if you like, but mostly you'll be standing. And then just find a little field. We've got room back here. There's room by the bar. There's room in the middle of the room. There's plenty of room. So find yourself a couple of people who you know will trouble your life in just the ways it needs to be troubled. Okay. So I want to direct this sharing just a little bit, and I do ask people to be just really find inside yourself your identity that does brevity. Some of us are not on very strong terms with that part of ourselves, but I'm going to ask you to find that part of yourself just so that we can have a few voices. You may really be feeling the need to share your experience, and I want to honor that. You might need to find a friend today to do that with. So really what I want to hear is very briefly unexpected resolutions, like that weren't on my list, for my sake, but for yours, or just what was the moment when A happened and then B happened and then it was better, or I understood something. You know? I can't pass around the mic, it is wired, so you're just going to have to speak up. So who would like to share an aha or a moment or a resolution that was a little surprising? Yeah.
For me, what was surprising was when meeting my big choice point in my life when I was in my 30s, and in meeting the life, I shifted paths, and meeting the life that I might have, if I'd gone a straight line, would, there was such love and peace and acceptance, and it was delightful to see that part of me. And so the resolution was, actually there isn't pain in between. Like I have been thinking about it, but it was just amazing and very healing.
Yeah, nice. The resolution, the generic resolution is, oh, this is my life, it is proper to me. Yeah, well, yeah, very.
So I think something, I divorced with my wife Susan, so I had 13 years, and I mostly have known that I made the right choice, but it just was nice to be able to see that I did actually make the right choice. That it would have been okay to stay, but the reasons I left are still there, and all the reasons I had to go, and the leaving was appropriate. So I think maybe now I can actually put it to rest.
Nice.
That was good. That was good.
I love that. The category of hard decisions that we have to make, and finding the reassurance, we know we made the right decision, but the deeper systemic reassurance that we made the right decision is different. So thank you. Yeah.
Finding the encouragement from the alternative self, where I expected it to be something different, even though I was like, oh, I want that, and I wanted that, but just feeling so much encouragement. It was just
Great.
Expecting something different and being so wonderful.
Yeah, that's one of the categories I find is this alternative life we have a special bond with, and it can bless us. It can, in some way. They're not all like that, but some of them are like that. Yeah, thank you. Over here, and I'll get to you, Wendy. Yeah.
So I came into the constellation
a little louder.
So I came into the constellation a little bit worried, and like there was a decision point, and did I make the right choice? And there was definitely relief. Like I experienced just a really strong relief, but I also started to feel like really deep compassion for the self that had stayed where I moved, and there was like I wanted to connect, and it was very healing and felt good.
That's a basic re-including. Yeah, the aspect of self that could have stayed. Or yeah. Please, Wendy.
What I was going to say is, a couple of ours, maybe all three, it felt like the part that was left or didn't live was life itself, was embracing life. So things happen, and then there was less life, less, and to re-embrace that and be embraced by that and begin again with life. Have it be okay. So it's a reintegration more than so long. But yeah, it still have what it has my back.
Yeah. Two movements that are really important. There's the connecting movement, there's the reintegrating movement, and then there's the separating movement. So there's different versions of that here, like, oh, these are not proper together. This is proper together. So finding which one is the correct one is part of the trickiness of finding resolutions sometimes. Yeah, someone had a hand over here. Yeah.
I needed that mirror to find a resource for me to carry on in this life.
Can you say that one more time a little slowly?
I needed to see that mirror to find a resource to help carry me forward in this life. I had a terrifying experience after a constellation years ago. I've been terrified of this work ever since. And when I pulled it in as a resource, I feel that I can accept my part in this world, whatever small part.
Wow. That's like going to Vietnam and having dinner with the Viet Cong. It is. It's shadow work. It's reframing the enemy, or however we want to put it. Yeah, nice. Yeah, it's homeopathic, right? Yeah.
I stepped into the constellation thinking that I owed the other aspect of myself something for me being able to have the experience that I had. And then stepping in, I ended up sitting in his spot, and it didn't feel right, so we switched spots where it's actually because of the experience, the choices that I made, that version of myself was able to have what it had. And having that reframed, that where it wasn't, like I felt like not a victim or not like I made a bad decision, like hey, like look, we all got something. It was a win-win. I got this, and because I got this, you get to get that.
Which is our life and not anybody else's, right? I'd like to ask, for those of you who are facilitators and who are maybe thinking, oh, how do I use this, or how do I make this work? A share or two just about how you were struck as a professional, as a facilitator, in terms of skills growth or something. Yeah.
So in addition to it being very useful for me personally, I do career consulting, and so I'm constantly working with people who have all kinds of stuff about decisions they made at various points in their lives, and this is such an elegant way to work with that stuff.
I can also imagine another version is if they're in the decision.
Yes.
I mean, Deborah was my practitioner when I was leaving parish ministry. It's her fault.
Her responsibility.
And for which I bless her. But in that moment, one could set up the future me who goes this way and the future me who goes that way.
That I've done.
Yeah.
But this,
the past decisions.
But for the people who were like, oh, when I was 22, I made the wrong choice, and it,
yeah, nice.
Yeah.
But I could also imagine in the midst, because at the point where I made that decision, to check in with the me who would stay. Okay. Anything else, personal or professional, that you want to share? Yeah, over here, sorry.
I'm wondering, because I'm still representing me and have the other representative representing what is in parallel versions, I'm wondering, sometimes it may be more useful to have the person actually step themselves into what is.
I've done that. Yeah, you can do that as well. You can play with this infinitely. You can also just have the client watch the whole thing unfold and have someone else represent themselves. It does seem with people who are experienced representative, it is very useful to let yourself represent yourself. But yeah, that's a great idea. I like that a lot. Yeah. Other thoughts?
Could you say a word or two? I'm just realizing when to heal is to betray ourselves.
Yeah. I'll just go with the woman who went to jail, as an example. It's easier that way. She couldn't move on because it would be a betrayal of the commitment she had made to the other life. Yeah? It would be a betrayal to the commitment she had made to be a good mother and be there for the first of her life, so the 4 years of her mother's life, to get, in a sense, the way we talk about it, to get over it, which is not a useful way to put it, but to get over it would be a betrayal of her commitment to being a good mother and loving. That was, of course, it's not true. We get that. To have reintegration with these alternative lives, there's now no longer any betrayal at stake in embracing this life as it is. So yeah, thank you. Yeah. And I mean that's not unique to this context. I mean that's basically an element in every constellation. I can't not be depressed because it will betray my mother who was always depressed and blah blah blah. That's right.
That's
so
right.
that's the same context. Yeah. Other questions or shares?